Minji shouts at her father if she has any pride. Why? Well, because his father, a normal businessman named Kim, is currently kneeling in front of the parents of another student, Hyuri. Minji tries to explain to her father that Hyuri hit her first, and she was defending herself. Hyuri's parents shout at Kim for not raising his daughter right, while the teacher also agrees with them. The teacher whispers to Kim that he has no choice since Minji's father is famous in the area and is also involved in politics. Nothing good can come from escalating the issue. Thus, Kim bows his head in front of them and apologizes to Hyuri's father for her daughter's behavior. Later, Kim and Minji go home with Minji angry at her dad. She cannot believe that he apologized even though she did nothing wrong. Everyone else's dads are congressmen or chairmen, while hers is just a normal manager. She walks away crying, telling her dad to leave her alone and that she'll be staying at her friend Hyuri-young's place. That night, Minji is in another confrontation with Hyuri. Hyuri starts slapping her and Minji pulls on her hair to fight back. However, a gangster named Minho who has a crush on Hyuri kicks Minji away. Minji insults them, prompting Minjo to slap her numerous times. In the heat of the moment, Hyuri joins in again and hits her on the head with a rock. She falls to the ground hard with her head bleeding all over the place. The people watching started panicking and one was about to call the emergency line when Minho suddenly stopped them. He tells them that they are all accomplices and instead, he would call someone from his gang to help him out. However, his gang leader, Mincheol, rejects his plea for help, so Hyuri takes his phone and tells him that she is the daughter of Gangshin Ju, the chairman of Joyeon Construction. At home, Kim is starting to get worried since his daughter is late. Meanwhile, Hyuri and Minho are now in a car with the group Mincheol sent to clean up their mess. The group's leader, a guy named Kai, describes to Hyuri how they will compress the corpse into the size of a fist and then send it to Japan. Minji's body in the car's trunk will be gone in no time. As for the payment, he'll personally send the bill to Mr. Ju so she doesn't have to worry about anything. They then kicked Hyuri and Minho out of the car so they could do their job. At home, Kim wakes up from falling asleep on the table waiting for Minji. He noted that his daughter never came home that night. On his way to work, he notices that a group of people are converging in one place. He checks it out and learns that an abandoned area near them is full of blood, and the people are wondering if a fight took place. On the ground, Kim notices a hair tie and recognizes it as the one Hyuri was wearing yesterday. He calls Hyuri-young, her daughter's friend, and asks her if Minji was there last night, but he learns that she wasn't. Hyuri and Minho are walking home with Minho assuring Hyuri that everything will work out fine. They then suddenly hear someone behind them speak up. It was Kim. Kim introduces himself and asks them if they know where Minji is. However, Minho grabs his shirt and is about to punch him for surprising them. He stops when he notices that Hyuri is still there and instead tells Kim that they didn't see Minji. Kim shows Hyuri her hair tie and asks her if it's hers. His continuous questioning angers Minho, who threatens him to leave. In a flashback, Kim was shown in the military taking their commander hostage. The other soldiers try to calm him down, but Sergeant Kim demands that he be discharged. His commander points out that he's not sure if it's even Kim's child, but Kim just shoots his gun in the air. Returning to the present, Minho removes his clothes to threaten Kim with his large and tattooed body. He asks Kim if he wants a beating and rips off his clothes too. But what they saw surprised them. In the flashback, it was shown that they cannot discharge Kim because his military outfit needed to be kept secret from the world. He had carried out 17 infiltration missions in North Korea, 5 double-agent missions in South Korea, 2 jailbreaks, and 1 assassination attempt of a country leader. He has a bounty on his head in North Korea, and China and Russia created special teams just to face him. His discharge would compromise foreign affairs. Meanwhile, Minho was stunned to see Kim's scared and battle-ready muscular body. He easily beats Minho and asks him where his daughter is. Kim starts choking Minho with Hyuri's hair tie, forcing him to divulge Hyuri's location. Hyuri, who was crying out for Kim to stop, passes out from the stress. Minho tells Kim that he didn't really know where they brought Minji, and that his only contact is his gang boss, Mincheol. Thus, Kim asks him where he can find his boss. In a house somewhere in the city, a beaten-up man is begging Mincheol to forgive him for not being able to pay his debts. Mincheol reminds the man that their contract stipulates that failure to pay would mean his daughter would pay the price. Mincheol then starts beating the man again and informs him that they plan to sell his daughter's organs. If he doesn't want that to happen, he can always take her place. However, the man just stays silent. They drag his daughter away from him and force him to watch while they start cutting her up. But before they can start, the doorbell on the house rings. One of Minchil's subordinates reports that someone is outside, but they don't think it's a delivery. Minchil orders him to send whoever it is away. The henchman goes out to close the door, but then he hears someone entering. He confronts the guy, but he suddenly gets attacked. Inside the room, Minchil and his other men hear noise coming from outside. They are wondering what happened to their friend when a loud object suddenly crashes outside the door. Minchil sends another one of his guys to check it out with a bat. Thus, when the door slowly opens, the guy immediately swings the bat at the intruder. Unfortunately, he hit his friend in the face, who was being used by Kim as a shield. Meanwhile, Kim quickly enters the room and beats the guy up. He strings him upside down with a piece of rope and asks him where Minji is. The guy cries out to Minchil for help, but Minchil was already jumping out the window. He quickly runs away, but he suddenly trips on a wire, causing him to fall on his face hard. He looks up confused about the string, but then he sees that the whole area was full of them, creating a trap. He then feels that someone is already behind him. A few minutes later, Minchil is tied up in a chair with his head covered, getting beaten up by Kim trying to extract information from him. Minchil tries to explain that they don't know Minji. They just get messages through an app called Telegram when they are needed. He cannot talk to them without being invited to a group chat first, which would then be deleted as soon as they are done. Earlier, that's also what they did when they had to get rid of Minji's body. Kim then breaks Minchil's arm, making Minchil threaten to sue him. After all, he points out that they are still minors, so the law guarantees forgiveness. Kim, however, doesn't care and just kicks him in the face. He then opens his briefcase and pulls out a gun from it. He tells Minchil that a parent who lost his child would have nothing to lose anymore. He then points the gun at Minchil's groin. Seeing the gun, Minchil admits that he's not really a minor. He suspects that Kim isn't going to shoot him anyway, since that would really make him a criminal. And yet Kim just nonchalantly pulls the trigger and shoots him in the thighs. Minchil tells him that he's leaving them alive because he still believes that Minji is alive, else he would have killed them. He promises that anyone who has ever laid even a finger on his daughter, he will come for them. He then picks up Minchil's phone just in time for it to receive a new text. The text says that they have confirmed that they put the girl Hyeri fought with on the ship and that they had confirmed she was dead. The energy drains out of Kim's body after reading the text, and tears start falling from his eyes. He drops his briefcase, wipes his eyes, and then proceeds to call the number. On the other line, Kai's henchman receives the call. They get curious why Minchil would call when it's not their usual form of communication, but Kai orders his subordinate to not answer the call. It's probably the police. He then orders them to delete the group chat, stop contacting Minchil for a while, and get rid of the phones. Kim receives the notification that the chat no longer exists, so he commands Minchil to reconnect him with them. Minchil meanwhile tries to explain that that's not possible in the app since they are the ones who deleted the chat room. Kim strangles him, trying to force him to do it, but out of nowhere, Kim was stabbed. It was done by the man Minchil was beating up earlier. The man tells him that that should make his debt disappear, and Minchil quickly agrees that he stabs Kim again. Kim stands up, showing that he's not actually stabbed, but instead, he actually caught the knife under his armpit. Kim was about to stab Minchil with the very same knife, but the police finally arrived. They see Kim holding the knife and order him to stop, while more police cars arrive at the scene. At the police station, Minchil and his goons keep insisting that Kim was the dangerous one who beat them all up after barging in on them. The detective doesn't seem to believe them since Kim surely looks docile and meek in front of him now. There's nothing special about his phone too, and they are just waiting for their background check to finish. They scan his fingerprints to look him up on their system, but weirdly enough, the screen tells him that the information is blocked. One of the goons narrates how Kim beat them up while searching for his daughter, and he starts kicking Kim. He stomps him into the ground, asking him why he cannot fight back now. The police called over more police officers to stop the rampaging convict, and 2 muscular policemen apprehend him. Meanwhile, the detective gets curious when Kim's phone suddenly starts ringing. He checks the screen to see who it is and learns that it's the suspect's daughter. Upon hearing this, Kim's attitude suddenly changes. The police officers guarding him are puzzled when Kim's handcuffs suddenly open. The detective was about to ask his fellow officers when he noticed that all of them were now unconscious. Kim then slams him into the wall and signs him to be quiet as he answers the still ringing phone. Unfortunately, the phone call was suddenly cut short. Kim tries to call back, but the line wouldn't connect. He strides away from the wrecked police station, renewing his hope of finding his daughter. A few hours later, the superintendent of the police officers is scolding his subordinates. He doesn't believe their story that one man was able to knock them all out. He continues berating them when a mysterious man appears. The man shows his ID badge to the police guarding the area and then proceeds to slap the superintendent around. He rips out the superintendent's shoulder mark showing his rank and asks him if he is the head honcho there. The man is the National Special Operations Director, Gochil Kang. Director Kang's subordinate then confirms that the background check on Code 66 originated from that police station. They have already confirmed his daughter's location, but they are still searching for Code 66 cell phone GPS coordinates. Director Kang assumes that he would have already thrown the phone away since Code 66 is too smart to be tracked, but his subordinate reports that the signal is actually still moving. Curiously enough, the signal is pointing to a taekwondo gym. At the gym, Kim is watching the instructor teach little kids. The instructor then finishes the class and sits down next to Kim. He is Han-soo Seong, a former national representative gold medalist. He asks Kim what's the problem is since if he is there, then surely something is up. Kim reveals that his daughter is dead, shocking Han-soo, but he is also not sure because he just received a phone call from her. He knows that he must get rid of his phone, but he can't because Minji might call again. Kim then admits that he is being pursued, and he apologizes for going to Han-soo, but he's the only one he can go to. Han-soo sighs and asks Kim if he still remembers how he saved his child Ta-hoon from drowning in the past. He promises to help Kim in return for that, but he must send his students home first. They see a student running up the stairs and playing with a stranger. However, the stranger was Detective Kang. Han-soo quickly kicks Kang in the face, which he quickly blocks but fails to block the next attack, which sends him tumbling down the stairs. Meanwhile, Han-soo catches his student's snack and advises him to go home. Kang tries to punch Han-soo, but Kim blocks him, angrily reminding him that kids are still present. Kim and Han-soo once again kick Kang down, while Kang's subordinate finally catches up to them. Han-soo starts showing off his taekwondo skills, bringing down multiple men. The men are even stunned to recognize him since he is a national representative and a legendary athlete. He is so good at taekwondo that even North Korea invited him to defect. The two finally break through and they flee from Kang and his men. Han-soo asks Kim where they're going next, and Kim replies that they should first head to the bunker. At the parking lot, the two escape using a van they nicknamed the bunker. Han-soo drives the vehicle while Kim is at the back, focused on multiple screens of a computer. Han-soo asks him if he still remembers how to track frequency even though times have changed since they were last on duty. Meanwhile, Kim reports that he successfully tracked Minji's phone, but where they ended up was strange. The area was dilapidated and full of punks. It was the worst high school in the whole province, Mabuk High School. A bully asks the two men what they want in the area. They tell them to leave since the province's 4 gangs are coming together that day. Han-soo and Kim pay the thugs no mind and just casually walk past them and into the school. Infuriated, the thug takes a hold of Kim's shoulder, but Kim suddenly throws him into the ground. He then steps on the thug and asks him if he saw a girl wearing a black blazer and red tie, with a heart-shaped keychain on her phone. The bully croaks out that he hadn't seen her, and Kim tells him that he should stop wasting his time then. Meanwhile, inside the school, the officers of the gang are having a meeting about forming a coalition for their conquest of Seoul. They are made up of various thugs and gangsters, with their leader a kid named Song-oh, who is an undefeated boxing champion. They have no idea that outside the school, Kim is going through their gang like a hot knife through butter. They try to gang up on him, but with each of Kim's attacks, groups of them are sent flying away. On the side, another gang is watching the commotion wondering if they should join the fight. Their conversation is interrupted, however, when Han-soo asks them if they have seen a girl named Minji. Surprised, the men attack Han-soo, but he easily dodges through their attacks. One thug who was just released from juvenile detention crazily attacks Han-soo with an axe. Han-soo kicks this one particular guy unconscious, pointing out that an axe is crossing the line. Seeing his prowess, the other kids meekly answer his questions. Meanwhile, Kim finally reaches the inside of the school. There he meets one of the gang's vice heads, a kid named Hyungmin, who was a former juvenile detention center boxer. He insults Kim for being just an old man and quickly delivers a punch at his open chin. Kim just slaps away his fist and then delivers his own barrage of punches at the kid. Afterward, Kim finally reaches the meeting room and he punches the door open. The thugs inside quickly get ready for a fight, but they also start insulting Kim when he enters. Kim surveys the room, seeing a box full of cell phones on the table and Sinongo sitting casually behind the other thugs. He notices that in Songo's pocket was a pink cell phone with a heart-shaped locket. It was his daughter's phone. A huge thug tries to ask Kim who he is, but the enraged Kim easily pummels him to the ground with a single punch. The others try to rush him, but Kim also easily sends them flying away. He then approaches Sinongo and asks him where he got the cell phone. Sinongo looks at the screensaver of the phone, which was a picture of Minji, and tauntingly tells Kim that she was the girl last night. A few moments later, Songo's face is now battered so much that he cannot see anymore. However, Kim still doesn't stop pounding on his face. He puts a pen between his fingers and then stomps on it, breaking his fingers. Hansu stops Kim, warning him that the kid might die if they continue. Songo also admits that he was actually just lying earlier. He never even met his daughter. Earlier that day, a subordinate of Sinongo had brought in boxes of gadgets after unlocking them. He also separated out the girls' phones. Sinongo asks him if there's someone pretty, and his subordinate shows him Minji's picture. That's why he starts snooping through it. Sinongo then notices that Minji's phone only calls her dad, so he starts laughing and insulting Minji. He then presses it by mistake, which causes the phone to call Kim. So that explains the call Kim received earlier. Sinongo then reveals that Kim is actually the only person in Minji's contacts. There's another one in her messages named Hyeryong, but based on their conversation, she's clearly just using Minji. Kim recalls how Minji told him she was staying at Hyeryong's the last time he saw her. Her name even comes up when he asks his daughter the name of her friend, so Kim always thought Hyeryong was Minji's best friend. But reading through her chats, Hyeryong had always used Minji to get money or to use her phone. Minji used to refuse Hyeryong, but Hyeryong told her that they were friends and friends let their friends borrow each other's stuff. Memories of Hyeryong's name flashed through Kim's mind. Every time he asked in the past, Minji said that she was her best friend. He clearly didn't know what was happening to his daughter. He even scolds Minji sometimes for not answering his calls, and Minji replies that she was with friends. But looking back now, it was clear that Hyeryong was using her phone. He laments how he didn't catch on earlier. Thankfully, Hansu grabs him and reminds him that it's not the time to get emotional. They still must find Minji, so Kim can apologize then. Kim finally calms down and agrees with him. He then grabs Sinongo again and asks him where he got Minji's phone. A little while later, Kim and Hansu are now standing before a drunk homeless beggar on the street. Sinongo had told them that they bought the phone from the beggar for only a beer. Kim shows the phone to the beggar and asks him where he stole it from. The beggar tries to dodge the question, so Kim threatens to drag him to the police. However, the beggar still insists that he didn't steal it, but he didn't find it on the ground either. This leads Kim to assume that the beggar picked it up after seeing someone throw it away, and he asks the beggar if this is true. In a flashback, the beggar was watching as someone in a car orders his henchman to throw the phones away. The beggar then took it from the trash, and later, Songo's thugs arrived and bought it from him. Kim realizes that the man in the car must be one of the people who moved Minji's body. He starts asking the beggar what the license plate of the car is or what type of car it is. If he knows this information, he can find them within 5 minutes. Throughout his life, the beggar laments his misfortune in life that resulted in him living in the streets. When he sees a bald guy throw an expensive-looking bag in the trash, he picks up the bag and thinks that his luck might be changing. But seeing the scary face of Kim now screaming at him, the beggar thinks that maybe he is not that lucky after all. After Kim grabs the beggar by the neck, the beggar reveals to him everything that he knows about the car. It was a white BMW, but he didn't get a look at the plate number. A bald guy then threw away the phone in front of a convenience store. That's all he knows. Hansu tells Kim that information should be enough for them to track down the car. The two men are about to leave when the beggar calls out to them and asks if he can get a reward since he clearly helped them find the car. Hansu pulls out a coin from his pocket and bends it in front of the beggar, asking him if he needs more than that. Meanwhile, Kai and his goons have arrived at the port. They take Minji's body from the trunk of the car, wrap it in a blanket, and put it in a freezer container. The item delivery is now done, the location is set, and his goons are on their way. All that's left for Kai to do is to call Chairman Ju and stab him in the back. He narrates how Chairman Ju once yanked out all his teeth. All his life, he has dreamed of taking revenge against the chairman. He couldn't get near him before since he was famous, but then the chairman's daughter ended up killing someone and giving them an opportunity. A security guard in the port sees them and scolds them for trespassing. He orders them to get out, but Kai's subordinate stabs him in the stomach and throws him into the freezer too. They then close the freezer and leave. Inside the freezer, Hayuri's body under the blanket suddenly moves. Meanwhile, Kim and Hansu are back in the van looking for Hayuri. Thanks to the tech in the van, they were able to hack into the CCTV cameras in the area. They then input the data they gathered from the beggar, the convenience store's location, the color of the car, the model, and even the beggar's face to locate the camera that might have caught the moment that Minji's phone was thrown away. After seeing the footage, Kim then inputs the bald henchman's face through facial recognition and learns that he's an ex-convict named Simon Kim. Next, they enter a vehicle inquiry using the vehicle details to triangulate its position. Kim impatiently waits for the search to load, but when the progress bar hits 99%, another vehicle abruptly slams into the side of the van, sending it tumbling around. Thankfully, Kim manages to see the result of the search before he also gets thrown around the car. It was pointing to a port 9.2 kilometers from their current location. The car that slams into them stops and Detective Kang exits from it. He pulls out his gun and aims it at the overturned van in the middle of the bridge, shouting at its occupants to get out. Hansu stops Kim from getting out and asks him what he's planning to do. Kim angrily admits that Detective Kang won't stop chasing them, so he's just going to kill him. Detective Kang shouts at Code 88 to exit the overturned van, but who comes out is Hansu. Hansu raises his hand just as Detective Kang asks him where Code 66 is. It turns out that Hansu had convinced Kim out of his plan. If Kim killed Detective Kang, then it might turn bad for both. Instead, he suggests that he will go to stall Detective Kang while Kim heads on to Minji's location. The van then explodes, confusing Detective Kang further. Meanwhile, Kim uses the explosion as a distraction to run away. He then leaps over the bridge and into the river below. Meanwhile, the standoff between Detective Kang and Hansu continues. Hansu approaches him, but Detective Kang hesitates to shoot a civilian. When he finally shoots, Hansu is near enough that he manages to knock off the gun and kick Kang away from it. Unfortunately, Detective Kang pulls out another gun from behind him and starts shooting at Hansu. Hansu flips around, making it impossible to accurately shoot him. Kang reloads and is about to continue shooting, but Hansu is gone. He had already somersaulted over Kang and slammed his feet into him. Kang manages to dodge, but Hansu's next kick disarms him again of his gun. Kang pulls out a knife and the two fight again. Hansu manages to hit Kang multiple times, but he gets nicked in the cheek by the knife. Kang's subordinates finally arrive at the scene to help their boss. However, Hansu leaps into the air and performs a leaping roundhouse kick. Kang didn't believe it would reach him since they were separated a few meters. He watches as Hansu spins not once, not twice, and not even thrice, but 4 times and then delivers a powerful kick, sending the both of them into the waters below. Meanwhile, Kim had finally reached Minji's location, the port. He sees the white BMW and a trail of blood leading past the metal containers. Inside the freezer, Minji was able to free herself and is now trying to escape. She pulls at the door, but it is locked, so she starts pounding on it, screaming for someone to help her. When no one arrives, she sulks in the corner, enduring the cold that is seeping away her strength. The freezer door then opens, but is it her father? Minji sees that the person who opened the door wasn't her dad, but instead it was Kai. Kai was trying to call Chairman Ju, but he wasn't picking up. He then notices that there were footprints going all around the inside of the freezer. Minji covers her mouth and hopes that he doesn't find her. Thankfully, the security guard that was stabbed earlier suddenly tackles Kai to the ground. It turns out that he wasn't dead, but just wounded. But the injury still leaves him weaker than normal, and Kai stabs him again. During the commotion, Kai's phone was flung away, and it is now resting inches from Hayuri's hiding spot. It was currently ringing with Chairman Ju calling it. The corpse of the security guard then falls right in front of Hayuri, and Kai picks up the phone without noticing her. He answers the phone, and they exchange pleasantries. Chairman Ju mentions that his daughter is now indebted to Kai, so he was hoping that they would talk in person. However, Kai tells Ju to stop acting like he's in charge. He commands Chairman Ju to show up at the location he will send with 2 billion won. No police and no bodyguards are allowed, especially Chairman Ju's manager. If he does something foolish, then Kai would reveal to the world that his daughter is a murderer and that Chairman Ju tried to cover it up. After the call, Chairman Ju consoles her daughter and assures her that everything will be fine. When he turns around, anger can be seen on Chairman Ju's face. He orders his manager Nam to cash out 500 million won. Meanwhile, Kai also exits the freezer and prepares to leave. He is about to close the door to the freezer when he and Minji finally make eye contact. Kai's cigarette falls in shock while Minji quickly pushes the door closed. Kai tries to open it, but it's already locked and Minji is sitting behind it. He calls Sangmin and his other goons for help, but surprisingly, no one is picking up. Kim had just spotted them in an office, and he recognized Sangmin from the CCTV. He closes the door behind him and confronts Sangmin and the other thugs inside. The goons try to ask Kim who he is and what he wants there. One of them threatens Kim with his fist, but Kim just shows them Minji's phone that they threw away earlier. Meanwhile, Kai fails to contact Sangmin and the others. He receives a call from his other subordinates that he called over earlier that day, and they tell him that they are almost there. Among them is a mysterious man all covered up named Kangman. Kai tells them to first head over to the office to check up on Sangmin and the others. As for Kangman, he instructs him to head to the freezer directly. The office is now wrecked by Kim's fighting. He is now outside trying to chase down a beaten-up Sangmin. Sangmin climbs up a crane while asking Kim if Chairman Ju sent him. He explains that they just received a call and transferred the body. She was already dead before they arrived. Sangmin finally runs out of space to run to since he's now at the end of the crane. Cornered, Kim asks him what he's talking about. Who is Chairman Ju, and what does that have to do with his daughter? But instead of answering, Sangmin jumps out of the end of the crane and into a nearby rope. However, the rain combined with the speed of his fall prevented him from having a secure grip, and he fell to the ground below, making a splatter. Meanwhile, the other goons report to Kai that the office seemed to have been attacked. Neither their Sangmin nor Burger are there. Kai orders them to scour the area and look for the others. Meanwhile, Burger was the henchman that Kim beat up earlier. He stumbles into a nearby car to try and escape, but Kim pounds on the window, breaking it, and demands Burger to exit the car. However, the car is already locked, and he starts taunting Kim outside. Kim lockpicks the door and calmly opens it, shocking Burger. He cowers from Kim and tells him that the girl is in the freezer container. That's where they dumped the body of the owner of the phone. They lied that they would transfer the body overseas, but instead, they planned to keep the body for future use. The other goons finally catch up to Kim, and they hit him with a metal pole in the head. But instead of falling, he just pummels the new arrivals. Meanwhile, Burger crawls away and into a nearby truck. He throws out the driver and steals it, driving away. Of course, Kim wouldn't let this happen. He jumps on top of the container and starts running to catch up to the truck. When he nears it, he jumps onto the car and delivers a flying kick straight through the side window and at Burger. The truck changes course, and they all take a deep plunge into the sea. Passersby start wondering what they should do when, thankfully, Kim surfaces from the deep sea with Burger in his arms. He demands Burger to tell him how to get to the freezer. Meanwhile, Kai is trying to talk Minji into opening the door. He first starts telling her that she'll freeze to death if she doesn't open the door, but Minji just sobs in her arms. He then gets an idea and suggests to Minji that they make a deal. In the distance, Kim finally arrives, dragging Burger behind him. A few kilometers away, numerous vehicles full of men are driving toward the port. Chairman Ju is about to make his entrance. He gives his permission to start the operation, and Manager Nam assumes command. Ju's driver asks him why they need to get Manager Nam involved when they're just dealing with a nobody trying to blackmail them. Meanwhile, Kai tells Minji that they have no grudge against each other. In fact, they want the same thing, to bring Ju down. Thus, she should just open the door so they can help each other. Minji doesn't believe his lies and points out that he's going to kill her the moment she steps outside. After all, she did just witness him kill the guard. Kai smiles and admits that she was right. Truthfully, he was planning to let her go alive if only she had turned a blind eye. But now that she states she saw him kill someone, then he must kill her. He then notices that Burger's walking to him all beaten up. He welcomes him and asks him why he never answered his call. Is it because Burger struck a deal with Chairman Ju behind his back? In his paranoia, Kai stabs Burger with a knife. This is also exactly the reason Chairman Ju had assembled this whole force against Kai. It's because Kai never trusts anybody, making him all the more dangerous. Meanwhile, Burger tries to explain that an intruder actually attacked him and points at Kim, who is standing menacingly in the distance. Kim approaches Kai armed with a rope. He is about to attack him when someone suddenly tackles him from the side. It was Kangman. Kangman is also one of the reasons why Manager Nam volunteered to be in command. He is an orphan sold in the black market and raised as a heartless, emotional soldier. Kangman attacks Kim with a flurry of kicks and punches. Kim dodges and Kangmin stabs his fingers at Kim's eyes. Kai was confident that Kangmin would win, and he also assumes that Kim is someone sent by Chairman Ju. That's why he was surprised to see that not only Kim blocked the attack, but Kangmin's fingers are now broken. Kim, radiating anger, asks Kangmin if he's in on it too, and removes his jacket. Kangmin also removes his parka and asks Kim if he's Chairman Ju. Kai explains to him that that's not him, but he's still an enemy. He then calls Kangmin his son and orders him to eliminate Kim. The two clash again with a flurry of blows. Kangmin dodges Kim's punch and grabs his arm, preparing to do an armbar and break it. However, Kim dislocates his own shoulder to escape from the hold and punches Kangmin in the face. He fixes his shoulder and pummels Kangmin with a barrage of punches. He asks Kangmin if Kai is his father. Kangmin in return catches Kim's fingers and breaks them. He then tries to put Kim in a hold again, but Kim executes a counter hold. Kangmin screams in pain and Kim commands him to stand down or he'll break his bones. Unfortunately, Kai suddenly kicks Kim, breaking his hold and allowing Kangmin to escape. Kai reminds Kangmin that if he ever feels like he's going to lose in a fight, then he should do anything even if it means killing the enemy. Kim tries to pounce on Kai, but Kangmin tackles him out of the way. He then removes his mask and promises his father that this time, he'll kill the enemy. He pulls out a knife and faces Kim. Kim, meanwhile, recognizes that Kangmin is about Minji's age and decides that he should spare his life. The two charge at each other, with Kangmin trying his best to stab Kim and Kim dodging the knife. Kim then puts Kangmin in a hold and starts strangling him with his legs. He tells him that no real father demands sacrifice from his child. Kangmin struggles to be free from Kim's chokehold. He slowly recalls the first time he met Kai. He was all alone in a room infested with bugs when his trainer opened the door and tells him that his father is there. Behind him was Kai. The memory bolsters Kangmin and he bites Kim in the thigh hard enough to draw blood. Kai had paid for him, with the trainer assuring that Kangmin had no background and no one knew him. He cannot be tracked by the police, and all that Kai has to do to keep him under control is tell him he's his father. His father then orders him to eliminate people bothering him, pointing out that it's his duty as a son, and every time he succeeds, Kai compliments him. He once even overheard Saemin asking Kai if they don't have to do something about him since Kangmin was acting like an animal. However, Kai just scolds Saemin and points out that Kangmin is an animal. After all, he paid for him. He's not human, and they can just leave him alone. With tears in his eyes, Kangmin finally faints from Kim's chokehold and falls to the ground. Kim stands up, stares at Kangmin, and hobbles off to the freezer. However, he suddenly stops. In the freezer, Minji is crying thinking about what she should do. The only thing inside the freezer is a bunch of frozen fish and the security guard's corpse. She remembers everything her father went through and decides to come up with a plan. Outside the freezer, Kai was waiting for Kim and Kangmin's fight to finish when he heard the door behind him unlock. He opens the door and asks Minji inside why she decided to open it. However, all he sees inside is someone under a blanket. He smiles and laughs at her plan, but he decides to play with Minji for a little while. Meanwhile, Kim had stopped walking when he sensed that Kangmin had once again stood up behind him. He asks him if he's really an animal, but Kangmin just blindly charges at him. He gets blasted away by a flurry of punches from Kim, and Kim warns him that he's only alive because he's not in a hurry to get to her daughter's corpse. However, Kangmin shouts at him to kill him because if he goes back to Kai with his mission a failure, then his father would kill him himself. Kim grabs Kangmin by the hair and prepares to punch him, but instead he asks her why if Kai's really his father, why would he be willing to kill Kangmin? He tells Kangmin that Kai is not his father. Real families don't work like that. He then walks away. He informs Kangmin that he's sparing his life because he's about the same age as Minji, and that's what you do for your family. Kangmin collapses on the ground thinking about what he said. In his memories, Kai had always just used him to stall enemies while he made his escape. Meanwhile, Manager Nam is standing over Kangmin and calmly breaks his neck. Back at the freezer, Kai pulls out a knife and stabs the blanket, telling Minji that her plan to pretend as a corpse is foolish. Unfortunately for him, Minji was actually behind him carrying a frozen fish. Minji slams the frozen fish directly at Kai's head, knocking him out. She doesn't stop until she's sure that Kai is truly unconscious. She then tells Kai that her dad taught her well. Kim had reached the freezer only to find it empty save for an unconscious Kai. He sees a woman's hair on the floor, so he picks up Kai and starts interrogating him about what happened. He tries to slap him awake, but he still won't wake up. Kim observes that the security guard was stabbed to death while Kai suffered from blunt force trauma. He wonders if they have fought against each other, but something doesn't seem to add up. On the corner, he finally sees a message scribbled on the freezing cold floor. It says, "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm scared." Kim was stunned to see it, and upon closer inspection, he became sure that it was Minji's handwriting. That means his daughter's still alive and has been alive this whole time. They only tried to hide her because they thought she was dead. He wonders who else might be linked to these gang members when he suddenly remembers how everyone seemed to assume that he was sent by Chairman Ju. He grits his teeth and trashes the place in anger. However, he calms down when he remembers that he should first find Minji before doing anything else. He quickly runs out of the freezer in the hopes of catching up to his daughter. After he leaves, Kai wakes up from his pretend sleep. He was so scared that Kim would kill him. However, he wonders why Kangmin let Kim go. He is about to exit the freezer when the door suddenly moves. He sees that it was Burger who firmly closes the door and locks it. Kai shouts at Burger, asking him why he's doing this. Is it because he stabbed him earlier? He apologizes and reminds Burger that he just has a bad temper. However, Burger just curses at him and remains blocking the door. Kai now starts insulting Burger too, and he pounds on the door. A little while later, Kai starts shivering from the cold. He shouts at Burger to open the door since Chairman Ju is coming soon and he will kill all of them. He kicks the door but just ends up hurting his feet. The door then slowly opens and Kai smiles at his new freedom. Unfortunately for him, what was waiting on the other side of the door was not Burger, but Manager Nam and Chairman Ju's men. Manager Nam kicks him further inside the freezer and orders him to open his mouth. Meanwhile, Kim is running around the port, screaming out Minji's name. Minji herself is running away trying to escape. She thinks she hears her dad's shouts, but she concludes that she must be just hearing things. After all, there's no way he's there. Kim himself is shouting his voice hoarse, but he notices that the rain is drowning out his voice, preventing it from being heard from afar. He ends up running into a dead end, so he jumps on top of the container vans and starts searching from there. A little while later, he finally sees Minji in the distance atop a cliff, climbing over a railing and into the streets above. Kim tries to get Minji's attention by shouting at her to turn around. Alas, the distance between them was too great and Minji continued walking towards the road. There she waves to a passing car crying out for help. The woman in the car tells her husband to stop so that they can help the student by the side of the road. But instead of slowing down, the car revs the engine and accelerates, splattering Minji with mud. The woman asks her husband why he did that, but the husband points out that the student was probably a scammer. No one with good intentions stands on the road for help these days since everyone now has cell phones. They can just call the police if they need help. Meanwhile, Minji cries while watching the car drive away. Kim quickly runs over to the cliff and starts climbing it. When he reaches the top, what he sees shocks him. Back in the freezer, Kai's golden teeth are one by one being pulled out by Manager Nam. Manager Nam asks him why he's blackmailing them when they let him live last time. Why is Kai still trying to fight them? In the past, Kai was an employee in a small service company that was part of a construction group. His job was decluttering the areas set to be redeveloped by dragging out the poor people living there. He was good at his job, earning the notice of his boss. One night, his boss calls him to one of their target apartments. There on the rooftop, his bulls tell him that the city isn't granting them redevelopment authorization. His boss then pushes him off the roof. A few days later, newspapers and television are filled with the news of a man falling off an old, dilapidated apartment. The news forced the government to finally allow the redevelopment of the land. It seems that that was the whole plan from the start. Unfortunately, Kai survived the fall. He took revenge on his boss and replaced him as the new boss. After getting his new position, he receives a call asking to meet with him. It was the chairman of the construction company, Chairman Ju. The moment they met, Kai instinctively knew that Chairman Ju was the guy who wanted him dead and masterminded the whole thing. He appeared gentle and friendly and talked a lot, but inside his head, all Kai could think about was how to get payback and kill Chairman Ju. Chairman Ju remarks that he wasn't listening, but Kai replies why should he listen to him. He then curses at Chairman Ju, which immediately changed the mood of the meeting. Then, the chairman starts telling them that he was also from the countryside like them. He owned a big dog back then, but it was a wild and violent dog. The dog was so dangerous that he almost got bitten several times. Thus, Chairman Ju asks Kai if he wants to learn how they tame wild dogs back then. He then orders his men to come forward and with them was a small boiling pot.